Just a bit about Mr. Jean Nyereka. He's a Rwandese Canadian. He's a husband, a son, and a brother, CPA. He's a leading voice in financial wellness in Toronto. He's had 14 years of professional experience in personal and business planning. Real estate, he's a real estate expert. He's into banking and tax consultancy in Canada. And he has traveled across Kenya, Tanzania, Thailand, and Japan. He's on a mission to help each and every individual and household have a budget and minimize the impact of bad financial advice. And he will be speaking with us and to us for the next 40 to 45 minutes, and then we shall have a question and answer session. We ask that we all remain muted as we listen. We're very, very excited to have you here, Mr. John Nyereka. Please.
Hello, I want to get some confirmation that you can hear me. So if somebody can hear me, just give me thumbs up.
I can hear you. I can hear you, John. You're welcome.
There you go. So you've heard my brief introduction. Thank you so much, Achai, for that. All around, I still believe that the biggest thing I can bring to you is an ability to open this conversation. And ultimately, it's up to us as the future of African thought leadership to move this conversation forward. I'm going to try and run through what would be 2-3 hours in a sense into 40-30 minutes and leave some time for question and answer. So if you have some questions, try to write them down. Enoch, I don't know if we have a chat. Do we have a chat?
Yes, we can. Yes, we have a chat. And if you want to share your screen, no problem. You can go ahead and share.
Okay, so I think I will share my screen. I think the notes will guide people follow a little bit closer. If it feels like it's a little bit fast, I guess it's supposed to be, but you can always follow up with me. I've made myself available. At the very end, you see my QR code. You can scan that and reach out to me for anything you see in this presentation. Now, this is not an exhaustive course of what you're supposed to know about financial literacy, but this is level setting where you have a strong foundation of what financial literacy is and the context that you come in. Now, for you guys to take your time on a Saturday, this is the most promising part of Africa. As somebody who has been in many discussions about what Africa is and what Africa isn't, and I think we are all very guilty of providing that commentary. We're always critiquing what Africa doesn't have and what Africa does have. One of the things that we absolutely do have is the youngest population in the world, the most youthful and an energetic population. And to have you guys all here on a Saturday where you could be doing absolutely anything else but learning about financial literacy is one of the most hopeful things that I personally can attest to. So big yourself up for that. Now, to get started, it is, am I sharing? Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
So it says I am disabled from participating in screen sharing. So I think there might be like a reset. I've got these notes and I feel compelled that if you need these notes, you can scan the QR code at the end and I will send them to you. So the QR code will take you to all my contacts and you can reach out to me via Instagram DM or my YouTube or any other parts of contact that you're comfortable with. I'll send you the notes.
So how about,
let me see.
You try again.
Oh yeah, this is fantastic now. Yes, okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so glad to be here with you. I believe you're all the leaders that we absolutely need in this time of transition. And to give a little bit of context, you all have seen how the internet has taken on from all the skeptics that questioned it. As a personal story, in Rwanda, we were one of the first families to have a computer. Now, the level of computer, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want anyone to laugh, but your iPhone is probably 100 times more powerful than the computer we had. We had it in 1992, and it was a big, giant screen. We used to throw a banana on the screen. So you would throw a banana from one side to the other, and the other player would use a keyboard to throw the banana back. There was no graphics. There was a lot of black and white. But now it has advanced to a level where everything is changed, and that also includes finance. Finance used to be, you have your cash, you go, you buy something. Even before that, we were exchanging cow shells, and some of the earlier forms of money were actually African in terms of glassy beads and rare seashells in the coastal areas, as well as later on gold. That is no longer the case. So gold is no longer money, but finance has gone digital, and we'll cover part of how that has resulted. So here is the agenda for today. The first will be introduction, which will be very brief, context and expectation setting. This is important, so we all know what to expect, and by the time we leave here, we know what we can leave with. Okay, so the second part will be talking about financial literacy, why it's important. The third part would be talking about the big picture. The big picture, how do we fit in a context? This is very important for us as Africans because by and large, finance has happened to us. So if we're asked to start doing the work of driving as opposed to being the passenger, we have to understand where we actually fit in. The fourth pillar, or the fourth part, will be the most important, where it's actually understanding financial literacy. And I'll give you a bonus topic, which is financial wellness, something I'm very passionate about, and I speak on an ongoing basis. So I can't see all your faces, but give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. All right, okay, let's go. All right, so this is my intro. That's when I used to have a beard. I am much younger now. As they say, black don't crack, and I'm practicing that religiously. I'm not going to read it to you, but I've worked with, so in Canada, there are 5 leading banks. I've worked with one of them, 2 of them for the past almost 14 years. And I've done banking in commercial, for businesses, for people, investments, loans, and everything in between, including writing policy. So if you have a question about Canada, you can still ask me, but let's focus on financial literacy today. So what can you expect? By the end of the seminar today, you should be able to understand the difference between money, currency, and value. That is where all financial literacy comes from, between what you pay for, what you get, and what you want. You should be able to understand income, expenses, debts, and assets. These are the pillars that form a good financially literate plan if you're trying to move forward in your personal wealth status, so to say. And then lastly, from the bonus topic, personalization for wellness. So, this is a new study that is emerging because for the most part, we have talked about finance as, something that is this high-end thing that happens to MBAs and other people who are well educated. It's supposed to be for accountants. But everybody who touches money is a financial expert on that money, because as you see in the discussion, no one knows your money more than you. And no one should ever be able to gaslight you on your money because, they're Harvard educated or educated at the University of Nairobi or something. Okay, so this is what you should expect by the end. So let's get started. So before we even talk about financial literacy, let's talk about literacy itself. Literacy is the ability to read and write. And in its most basic form is what makes everything that we do possible. I could not be here communicating these ideas to you if it wasn't for literacy. I want to slow this process down and talk about this specifically because by and large, we take literacy for granted because most of us have friends who are educated. There are very few intersections between uneducated people and educated people. And the most stark differences are actually in some of our countries. The highest literacy rates are actually not in North America. I think the highest literate country is Uzbekistan. Put that on your bingo card if you play bingo. But out of the 10 lowest literate countries, 9 of them are African. So you can already see the barriers that exist in being able to financially get ahead because you cannot communicate advanced ideas without literacy. So this is why the mission of financial literacy is very important, but we have to be able to put it in African context where our challenge and your challenge and my challenge to you is that we are learning these things to teach them because we cannot have the luxury of not teaching them. We have that need to teach because our literacy gaps are even higher than the normal literacy gaps. So what are the benefits of literacy? Personal development. You get better faster. You're able to consume information faster. Career opportunities. You can work remote. You can use the internet. You can use government resources. You can write grants. You can take from the world more and contribute more. Civic engagement. Democracy doesn't work with illiterate people. That's not a hot take at all, because if you cannot argue with someone to a point where we know which idea is best, you are not going to be able to form consensus. That is just not going to work for democracy. And if we are going to advance democracy, literacy, financial literacy by extension, is going to be very important. Cultural preservation. We don't write our stories nearly as much as we should. And part of that is the literacy barrier. And the critical need right now, this is one of the things you should take with you. We have some of our older people in the community who are not literate by just design, like they were born earlier in time and they never went to school. You need to help them document all the stories that they want to tell. It's going to be an educational piece for you, and it's going to be something that preserves culture for us as a community in general. So as the leadership you are, cultural preservation should be important to you. Socioeconomic development. This is where financial literacy fits in. You cannot move forward if you don't know where forward is. And unfortunately, finances in every way, whether it's grants, scholarships, opportunities, come in when you are absolutely clear that you know what development looks like. I see a lot of microfinancing happening all over Africa, and that started because people understood what social and economic development is. Instead of waiting to get small farmers to a point where they industrialized, they started getting people loans at the size and place where they are for social development. So literacy, very, very important. Financial literacy, also very, very important. So that is the ability to read and write, but in a financial context. So that is to understand finances and navigate financial markets. Now, when I say financial markets, I don't want people to go and say, wait a minute, are we talking about the stock market? No. We're not there yet. Relax. We're talking about your job is a financial market. Your job is the place where you go to exchange your time and your ability to create value for money. Everywhere where money is exchanged, there is a financial market. And we need to be able to understand this a little bit deeper without making it complicated, that when we get to understand the next two slides will bring this home. When we get to understand what money actually does, you realize you're in a financial market almost every minute of your day. So financial literacy is not optional if you're going to be in the market every day. You have been in all the markets in some markets where you go and you start choosing stuff, like in, I think in Kiswahili we call it chagua. When you go to the market and you there's like a pile of stuff and you're trying to figure out the flyest one, and then you negotiate the price. And after you negotiate the price, they say they want 200 shillings. You're like, I have 100. And then you walk away and then they follow you. And then you're like, okay, I'll give you 120. That is participation in the financial markets. So being able to understand that you're in a financial market means that you now know the reason why you need financial literacy. But what does financial literacy actually do when you get to understand it? We'll define it later on what it is, but let me tell you what the benefits are. Financial literacy will help you make informed decisions. In every single day, we are faced with, what should I do? Should I buy a soda? Should I buy, I don't know, meat? Should I buy an iPod? Being financially literate will allow you to form better decisions that long-term, you actually look back and you're not looking back in regret. It also promotes financial stability, because if you're not aware of exactly what your participation in the financial markets is costing you, or where it's leading you, you're going to end up in a position where you are not balanced in what you buy and what you need. So the focus between needs, wants, and other like luxury items come with a good financial literacy. It helps you understand products and services. We have all been scammed in a way. You know, if you have not been scammed yet, you're probably one of the best people in the world. And maybe I'm afraid for you because it's coming. Somebody comes in promising you, I have a bank account that multiplies you money every 2 minutes, you know, by 10%. You give me 1 million, I give you 20 million tomorrow. I've got an uncle in Nigeria who just cannot find a way to get $1 billion out. All of those are financial products that if you're literate, you'll be able to know that, no, there's no such thing as a financial product that multiplies my money every 2 minutes. So that's the very importance of financial literacy. It facilitates decisions about debt management. I know in an African context, most of us do not actually end up using credit markets. And that is one of the reasons why the conversation on debt today will not be like that advanced, but the conversation on risk management is something that we will touch on quite a bit when we get to talking about assets. Debts in at least most of the African context, correct me if I'm wrong, are usually going to be from families and from friends, as opposed to from banks, at least on our level. But as you advance and you're pushing these ideas of your own, whether it's an enterprise, social enterprise, or you're studying a business, or you're studying an NGO, being able to communicate in a financially literate way what you want to do to create change is going to be very crucial for you to get funding from like World Bank, UNHCR, and all the other Action Aid and all the other organizations. They will want you to talk to them in financial terms, what you're going to do for your people. So it's very important for you to be financially literate, and by extension, help yourself get some of these favorable outcomes. And lastly, for creating a financial well-being, this will be covered in the bonus topic because all of us have been stressed at one point in time, and you never want to live in that stress because of financial illiteracy. Okay, so big picture. What is money? So because we do not have 3 days to discuss what money is, we're going to try to cut through it and say it's a medium of exchange. Now, the medium of exchange is what somebody will accept for services rendered or goods provided. And in many countries, there is a currency. And usually the person setting the currency is the person setting the taxes. So the government authority that is given the ability to tax usually is related to the ability to regulate money. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but because of the currency, you have currency supply and currency demand, which determines inflation. And once we get to inflation, which I'm sure some of you are very interested in, I am personally interested in as well, we'll get to talk about that. So money is a medium of exchange. Currency is the physical form of the money that specifically for that country. Okay, so if you understand that, I think we're on a good footing. And it's still the same topic of money. The US dollar sits at the top chair of all currency. And this did not happen by accident. This happened because the Bretton Woods, after the World War II, there was a meeting that happened, and there was an agreement by European powers. Africa did not participate on this. We were not invited. And maybe that's one of our opportunities. When are we going to be invited in setting the currency? Because every single time you have currency wars or you have wars for whatever situation, the currency really affects us significantly through exchange rates, but I'll get there in a second. So the US dollar sits at the top of the world currencies, and whatever happens to the US dollar affects us all significantly. And most of you have bought US dollars to preserve value in your current context, and maybe you do not understand why. Let me tell you why. So the US dollar is the most accepted currency in the world, which means the biggest commodity that is most important to the world, which is oil. I know there's some environmentalists here, and maybe that's something you will change, but to this day, oil is still the most important commodity in the world. It is still denominated in US dollars. So because of that, everything else ends up being denominated in US dollars. And because of the stability and political setup of the US, since 1945, 46, after the Bretton Woods, everything has really revolved around the US dollars. And because of this, whenever their currency keeper, which is the Federal Reserve, puts too much money out or puts too little money out, it affects what the world pays for the US dollar through currency exchange. Currency exchange is how much I'm comfortable exchanging my current currency to, let's say, the US dollar to be very uniform. This changes depending on the value of the dollar. Like currently, what the US is going through is a high inflation period. So this is a time where they put too much money out during COVID, that the price of the dollar fell. Now they're trying to take all that money out, and the price of the dollar goes up. But as you well know, in the African context, when they say it fell, like they're trying to reduce it from 8% to 2%, our currencies go from 500 to the US dollar to like 1,500 to the US dollar. The waves are much bigger by the time it gets to us because we don't create many US dollars. Because we don't create many US dollars, we always have to buy whatever the market rate is for US dollars to run our economies. that puts us at a very unfair advantage, because every single time you are not trading with an American for US dollars, you are trading with somebody else to get their currency to buy US dollars, so that eventually you can get something you want. The more steps you have to go through currency and currency exchange rates, the more money you lose. So there's a mechanism of where countries have to trade with different countries, and the government doesn't go and buy. Sometimes they do. I know in Malawi they bought fertilizer directly, but mostly it's just personal actors, you and I in the economy, going ahead and conducting our business. If I'm conducting my business in Dubai and I'm selling to Kenyans in shillings, I have to get these shillings, convert them to Canadian, US dollars, take them to Dubai and buy in, I don't know what the Dubai currency is. Clearly not rich enough to know, but I need to give them money that they understand, and everybody understands US dollars. So if I have to do 2 or 3 of those instances, let's say I buy those things, I bring in and I make a process, I'm a manufacturer, I create something, I have to sell it in Europe. I sell it in Europe, in euro. So for transportation, I have to pay in US dollars. And then when it gets to Europe, I sell it in euro. I take the euros, change them to US dollars, change them to shillings to pay our people. And then you see how many times I'm buying dollars, right? About 4 or 5 times in one transaction, I'm buying dollars. And that is what the world dominant reserve currency is. If you ever bought dollars to maintain value of your money, that's the reason why you bought it. Because it's so much in demand that there is no other currency that keeps value as much as it does. And trust me, it loses value as well in real terms. So a dollar in 1946 is now worth about $87 in today's money. So if you bought a house for $1 in 46, now that house is worth $86 in real dollars, in real America. So their dollar is losing value, but our money loses value faster because it's even less demanded. I have a question. I have a feeling that I'll get a question on exchange rates, so I'll stop it. I'll stop it there. I'll explain the mechanism when I get to it later on. Okay. All right. So the other part to understand inflation. Inflation. I'm going to stay away from the economics mambo jumbo and say inflation is when there's too much money for too few goods, so prices go up. There's a whole economics textbook that I just skipped. But if you can understand that if there's too much money for too few goods, prices go up, then you understand inflation. Sometimes the prices go up part in an African context is that the produce of the raw materials went up, or the US dollar went up, or we don't control a lot of what happens to our inflation. So you end up having runaway inflation. But the other problem that happens with runaway inflation is it reduces the confidence in the currency. What is happening to Turkey right now is that everyone has lost confidence in the lira. It's a big economy, big country. It's not going anywhere. But once your currency loses confidence of people using it, everyone is rushing to the US dollar every time they do anything. So your currency ends up losing value faster, making prices go up, which is inflation. Because they don't trust that you're controlling how much money is coming in, people keep adjusting prices up. That is inflation. Inflation is very important for financial literacy, because if you do not understand that there's inflation, you will make decisions that ignore one of the key pillars of financial well-being. So value versus price. This is where I need you to be very strong. When we have the conversation of value versus price, is what you pay for versus what you get. And here is where you have to be prepared before you even spend, right? If you see something that is shiny, somebody says, hey, do you want to buy this car? It's only 10 kwacha. 10 kwacha is not a lot. Just for people who do not know, 10 kwacha is, there used to be a coin for 10 kwacha, but they removed the coins. The coins are literally worthless. If somebody says it's only 10 kwacha, do you want to buy the car because of the price? Is the price right? What if you don't need the car? What if you're inside your own car, you have a Mercedes, and you're like, why would I buy this beat up car even for 0.05 cents? That makes no sense. So value is, what does it mean to you? Price is how much you're paying for it in currency. When we usually extend ourselves financially, we are extending to buy things that we find little value in. And usually when that becomes a problem is when things that we find little value in become the things that we bought, as opposed to things that we find big value in. For example, you want to go on a vacation to Zanzibar. That's going to cost you $400, but you're going to be very excited. At the same time, you have to pay rent for $400. It is still the same $400. So understanding value versus price, you finally get to, okay, what is valuable to me? And after you pay rent, what if there was a house that is available for $400? So you have to work from your financial literacy of knowing the markets and then the values that you personally hold. What is valuable to you? What is valuable to your future? Now, prices will depend on inflation. And when you get to assets, we'll talk about strategies to counteract inflation. Inflation is a very big deal in the African context, but it's a very big deal in every context. This year or last year alone, Canada had record inflation that we haven't seen since 1985. So people are really hurting because inflation works its way through the cost of living. So you start to see eggs are expensive, rice is expensive. My God, gas, oil becomes extremely expensive. Okay, so with that said, these are the questions that you should, I'm going to send this to you in the notes. You need to understand the impact of inflation on money, the significance of the US dollar, and how currency exchange impacts international trade, the difference between value and price. This part, I think I'll get this in the question. So central banks in emerging economies, that is a big topic for what should we set our money to? Should we just anchor it to the US dollar and just hope that, you know, we survive? Or should we continue making our own money that by and large is unusable because it keeps losing value? And we'll talk about recession in the comments because I feel like we're a couple minutes behind schedule. All right. So 2 pillars of financial literacy. As an accountant, it's very important for me to not use too many big words, but I could not escape this too. Income statement and balance sheet. These are the 2 things that anchor your financial literacy. Now we'll define what an income statement is and what a balance sheet is. But you could be in Japan, you could be in Australia, you could be in China. If you want to see what the value of a company is, you just ask for these 2 things. It doesn't matter what else they have going on. You ask for income statement, balance sheet. You will know exactly what they have going on. It's not that complicated. So what do you get from an income statement? So on a personal level, income statement is a budget, right? In what's coming in and what's coming out. And I'll spend quite a few moments on this because what you need to understand when the money is coming in is where you are standing when you receive the money is almost just as important as the money you receive. And let me tell you why. Where you're standing when you receive the money will determine who is going to tax you on that money and which currency you're going to receive it. And those two things will determine how much it's actually worth in financial markets. Beyond that, once you have received the money, let's say you have received it as a salary and you have received it as a salary in South Africa, for example. Now you have rands and you know how much taxes that is owing. So if the tax is 20%, if you receive your money and taxes are included, you don't have that 20%. You have to remove that 20% because even if you receive it, you haven't earned it. The government of wherever place you are will find you if you do not pay their taxes. There's one thing government loves, but there's nothing other than power. There's nothing more important to them than taxes. So pay your taxes before you count your money. So let's say you earn 100 Rand, 20 is taxes. You take that 20, you put it away. Okay? And then when you're doing your income, you start by budgeting for that 80. And if you think that you want to have a better future, you budget for your future as well. So you take that off the top as well. Same as taxes, you take your savings off the top. Most people say 15% is a good rate of savings. So if you after your taxes are done, take away 15%. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you do it earlier, before you have accounted for the money, you will end up having a better outcome than try to account for what you need to spend on and then account for all your savings. So the way to look at income is income, what has come in, which is called gross, remove the taxes, and remove the future. Okay? So that is part of the literacy part, like, because at some point you will understand that you make less money, or you want to make less money as you grow. You want to save every time you earn, because that's going to limit your lifestyle expansion. Okay, like when we get to expenses, we'll talk about a lifestyle expansion. But this is something that you will all laugh at yourselves for, because clearly we're here using internet, and is it a need or is it a want? We're going to get into that just now. But once you get paid, you remove the taxes and you remove what you have for the future. Most people say the future should be like 15%, and then you budget for your life. Okay, then you start with expenses. So now if you earned 100, you remove 20 for taxes, and then you remove 15 for your future. You have what to budget with? 65. And now that already you are doing a very good job. Like just by doing those two things, you're already doing a good job with your budget. Now, once we get to expenses, so you have 65% of your income to spend. There's some very key expenses that you need all the time, like rent, tuition fees. Those, you know, they're coming. There's nothing that can stop them. So you want to budget those first. If there are expenses that you cannot skip, you budget those first. Those are called fixed. And amongst fixed, there are things that are recurring, like they come every year or every month or every week. You should budget those first. But do not forget that there are some fixed expenses that come annually as well, once a year, like you come on Christmas Day, your birthday. Don't be surprised by your birthday and then have to spend your savings money for your birthday, because it kind of comes the same time every year. Let's be 100% honest. So if you're aware of annual stuff that comes, even your mother's birthday, your kids' birthdays, those things should be budgeted for first. And if it comes in a year, then however much money you get paid, let's say monthly, you should take out a small bit and put it towards what it's going to be for the year. Okay, variable expenses. So these are expenses that come and go. And these are like, I would say, like, at times you might buy 2 kgs of sugar. At times you might buy 4 kgs of sugar. Right? Like it depends. Like your grocery bill will not be the same every year, every month, every week, but it's going to be there. So what you need to do with the variable expenses, you have to get a good estimate. You have to get a good estimate, and not like a low estimate, but a good estimate, and then put it in your budget. All right. So with variable expense, excuse me, with variable expenses, you want to get a good estimate and put that in your budget. And I may have jumped the gun, but your budget and your expenses should reconcile to how much money is left. So you've taken out taxes, you've taken out for the future, you've taken out the major expenses that are fixed, and you've taken out estimates for what's valuable. You need, at that point, you'll be able to know what is remaining. And that is what is called discretionary income. That's the part that you can do what you may with. And this is where you design your lifestyle. What is value? What is price? What is important to you? Should you, go on a trip to Mombasa, or should you invest in a course to know, design? Or should you invest in speaking classes to be a better presenter and orator, so that you stand in front of a stage, you can command the present, you have commanding presence, and that down the road is going to make you a better diplomat, and be able to help you conduct the business that you're conducting. So that's where, from that discretionary income, you need to make those decisions. But you're not skipping taxes, you're not skipping your future, you're not skipping fixed expenses and estimates for variable expenses. Okay, the best way to do this is track your expenses. One thing I always say with my clients is, no one starts from a clean slate. So if you think that you're somehow special, that when you start your budget is going to be zeros, zeros happen at birth, right? Like you get born, that's zero. Everything else, you might have rent due already today, right? Like what day are we on? We are on the 4th or the 5th. 4 days ago, we paid rent. So even if you're doing a budget, you're not starting from zero. So track your expenses and know which buckets are in. You might have to adjust different buckets from what we just spoke on to get you back on track to a place where you're doing better. So strategies for reducing expenses and savings. It's always focusing on value. So focusing on value. For savings, the only strategy that works is to take it off the top. Treat it like a tax. Treat it like a future tax, right? So your government will take its tax. And the tax is to what? To build the community. Alleged. So we cannot confirm or deny that all the governments are using the tax money to build the community. But the idea of taxes is to build the community. The roads that you go on, the airports and the schools, that's what you pay tax. If you treat your savings as a future tax, is to build your future self. So you do that ahead of time. For reducing expenses is really going back to the value versus price conversation. Don't just buy it because the price is right. Buy it because it's valuable to you. And keep doing that internal work to know what's valuable to you. Some people frame this conversation as needs versus wants. But needs, that conversation on needs, if it's basic needs, it's in fixed and variable expenses that we spoke on. What we're talking about here is everything else. You can literally decide not to spend. You have enough clothes, you have enough. But will you be miserable if you do that? Maybe. But do not mix your happiness with spending, because the value and the prices will always go up, and your happiness will be tethered to that. That's no way to live. And maybe I'm jumping ahead to the wellness part, but yes, do not tether your happiness to the price tag or whatever it is that you can spend on. Keep those two very separate. Most of you are very passionate about at least diplomacy and having a better development conversation. Focus more on that. And there are many ways to get better at that. You can get courses, fly overseas to different conferences. That's how you reduce your expenses. You focus on what you want to do. If you're saving for a conference in Munich or you're saving for a conference in Mumbai, you're not going to be going around buying things that makes no sense. So focus on your value and treat your future savings as a tax. Okay, so balance sheet. Assets. So assets, this is the thing where we say wealthy people are wealthy because they have assets. Now, assets are things of value. I added cash here, but cash, especially because we determine currency can go up and down, it's not one of the best assets. And if you have a currency that has high inflation, that cash of the value will keep going down. So an asset is something of value. There are some non-conventional assets like time, like my time is valuable, your time is valuable. And together we're making this conversation, a conversation about time. And our time it gets more valuable the more of these conversations we have, because the experience we're gaining from it, the knowledge makes us more valuable. But in this case, we're talking about financial assets, things that you can buy. So the things that you can buy that go up in value or bring in cash flow, those are the two types of assets. And some assets, like houses, bring in cash flow. They bring in money on a regular basis, and they go up in value when the money starts going down. So if you're in a high inflation area, the rate of converting to an asset should be higher. And this is the reason why. Every single day, you're losing a significant chunk because of inflation. So what you need to do is try to figure out a way to put it in some sort of asset, a product, a real product or a virtual product that will keep up with the economy. I was joking with my brother the other day, but in Malawi, we have Malawi gin. Malawi gin is a type of gin or like alcoholic drink that is made locally, but is enjoyed by tourists all over the place. Nothing has kept up with inflation better than Malawi gin. So if you had 100 kwacha and you're like, I don't want to lose the value of this 100 kwacha by next year, and you go to the bank, they tell you they give you 5%, but you know inflation is 15%. If you bought a Malawi gin bottle and you did not drink it, because we got to talk about that. If you did not drink it, today it will be worth 1,500 because inflation has increased it to a point where the market will pay 1,500 for it. But that, in essence, is the goal of assets. It's something that is valuable to the general market that keeps its value. And most of the times, you want to make sure that when it keeps its value, it's going to keep its value even through inflation. So cash can be a bad idea if inflation is higher than what you're earning in interest. Assets are very key in building wealth, and they're the only thing that builds wealth, really. And you've seen those NBA players who get paid $10 million and they buy a $10 million house. That is definitely not how to do it. That's not how to build wealth, because if you're not getting money from the house, you're putting money in the house. If it's a product that could be an asset, but it keeps taking money from you, that could also be a liability or a debt. So a debt is something that takes something from you or something that you owe. If you have a house that has a mortgage, you have a mortgage before you have a house. Because if you do not pay the mortgage, somebody will take the house. most of at least the smaller context on this is that we borrow from our friends, we borrow from our family. That is debt. If you're borrowing to continue living your life and not for something specific, that is an asset, then that is what is called bad debt. Bad debt always buys something that is not an asset. Doesn't matter what it buys. It is still bad debt if it doesn't buy an asset. If it buys an asset, it has a chance to be good debt. It's 50-50 on that. But if you are borrowing and not buying an asset, it is bad debt. So debt is not bad, but debt that doesn't buy assets is bad. All right, so because we are out of time, it's 43 minutes, I'm just going to say that's the conclusion. At this point, you know how to make your budget. You know how to, I'm going to go back on this for a second. When you're making your net worth statement, you want to put the value of all your assets and the value of all your debts together, and you need to create a number at the end. You take the number of your assets minus the number of your debts. The number you get is the net worth number. Development is about getting that number up. I know everybody has defined development in this nebulous, like, oh, it's these pillars of this, that. No, development is more net worth. That's it. And if you get a lot of net worth, it can supplement your cash flow. It can do all of this, but that's the scorecard. It's similar to if you have a lot of participation points, but when it's time for final exam, you do not perform in the final exam. It's not going to matter that you're in class, like, participating, answering quizzes. Net worth is the final and end all. You need that net worth to be going up, which means you need it to be beating inflation. That is why you have to be very conscious on which assets you select. Okay, so there are different kinds of debts, but you get the impact on debt. That's what I wanted to focus on. You can get different flavors: credit card, mortgage, personal loans, car loans. But if it's not buying an asset, it's a bad idea. Okay, so you have your two things. This is literally what financial literacy is. You get an income statement, a balance sheet, an understanding of how you're positioned in financial markets. Now, what is wellness? So wellness is where those things that we just talked about connect with real life. I said we are not starting from zero because we were not born last night. So it is not possible for us to go back in time and say, okay, you know what? I'm starting from zero from now on. I'm sure you have, tuition that you've committed to, you have insurance premiums to pay, you have all these things are in your bag right now, and you're carrying this bag. So financial wellness is the idea of lightening up the bag so you're carrying the right size bag, enough for you to start making progress. So financial wellness is having control over your financial situation, also understanding what you cannot control. Being able to be in a low inflation area like we are in Canada is a big blessing because you can plan ahead a little bit more reasonably than, let's say, if you're in Turkey where inflation is 90-something%, or like when Zimbabwe was going through all of that, it was impossible to plan. But understanding that you cannot control the inflation will help you understand that I need to get assets that resist the inflation. That is well-being. Okay, and the second part is habits. Sometimes if you're unaware, you're financially, even if you're financially literate, payday is the toughest day for most people because you feel like you have a lot of money. You go and you spend it, and then you're out of your budget. A good financial habits will be like setting your own budget, giving yourself that future tax, taking that 15% off before you even do anything. And the other components are psychological, like comparing yourself. Like we all went to school with different people, and you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and you start looking at people's profiles and you're like, oh my God, this makes me so sad. Look at these people doing so well. If you have a good grounding in financial wellness, you'll understand that you're on your own journey. You're on your own like destined path, and you're not going to compare yourself with somebody buys a BMW. You know for sure that, hey, if it makes them happy, but there's a very good chance that they just took on bad debts to do that. You don't need to go around feeling bad about yourself because somebody did that. And that is part of wellness, developing a good psychological makeup around money, that you have a good plan, that plan that is yours, you're convinced that it respects everything you value, and then it also takes you through different financial markets in a safe, consistent manner. Yeah, and it provides you freedom, freedom to think and freedom to be more who you are. If you're satisfied in and not worried about your money situation, you know your income, you know your future, you know your expenses, and you know your assets and liabilities, and you know you're moving forward with what you value, that's going to give you so much confidence to move forward without looking around at what everybody else is doing. It also helps you set goals and achieve your dreams without any financial hardships. So if you have any goals that have been derailed by, the needs. So let's say you want to go Kuala Lumpur for a conference of young future leaders, or you want those big things. You can set that as a dream, knowing that you're taking care of your finances, and then you can start communicating with people. And what do you know? People will make that happen for you. But if you're not sure about your budget, you're not sure about your assets, and then you feel bad every time about where your financial situation is, you might not have the confidence or the freedom to communicate your dreams properly, to let the universe actually help you achieve them. So that is my life's work, and I'll take 10 minutes for questions. You can scan my QR code, and you find me from that QR code. And obviously, Enoch will send the notes out if people are interested in them. But yeah, I'm here for questions. Thank you so much for your time. I haven't checked the chat once, so I don't know what questions came in. Oh yeah, okay, so. Oh, am I?
Question?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I just, yes, go ahead. Enoch, do you want to take the screen back?
Yes.
I'm going to open the chat and try to go through, but some people can ask. I think Lebeza has a question.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, sir. I think you're on mute. Enoch, do you mind unmuting the man?
Sure. So who's asking?
Lebeza.
Lebeza. Okay, so I'm gonna allow people to mute themselves. Now I think you can mute yourself. Yeah.
Can you get me? Can you hear me? You hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank all the audience and the guest, Mr. Yuan. I don't know your name. Over here it says John, but in the PowerPoint it said Yuan Paul. Which one is your name? First of all.
You're muted, John. You have to mute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Because I'm Rwandese, Jean Paul was my original name. I changed it in Kenya to John, but now I'm back to using Jean. So call me JP. How's that? Thank
you, sir. So the question I provide for you is that about most of the in different professions there are the softwares which are trying to make easy things to launch or to prepare the program. Like, for example, in civil engineering, there's an ETAPS program and some software. ETAPS software, AutoCAD, like this. Which kind of professional softwares would you prefer for us to use to manage our financial for financial management? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. So this is a fantastic question. We have about like around in Canada, we have Mint and we have mint.com. I think that's actually available everywhere. The only thing I'll say is we complicate it a little too much. What you need is that 15% personal future tax. What you need is to pay your taxes. What you need is fixed expenses. And what you need is those estimates for variable expenses. You can write it on a banana leaf. You can write it in water as long as you take that 15% future tax. Now, because we are all on apps, pick one that feels good to you. I am not a UX or UI person. I just know if you have a plan, you can find the app that gets the plan to you. So sorry, I don't have any ones that I endorse, but mint.com does a good job. So I hope you can go around, find one, but take that 15% future tax and then fixed and variable expenses. That's all. All right, what's the next one? So yeah, there's a comment by Marion Leon. I think I'm saying that correctly, Marion Leon, about cars. Yeah, and we all fall into the category of like falling for shiny objects. And at this point, I think we should have learned that shiny objects should probably be a red flag at this point. Because like how much value can a shiny object really have other than show value? And if somebody has to spend that much money on show value, how much value is show value? But she mentions that you don't know what economic crisis they went through, so keep on your progress. Yes, so keep on your own value system. Don't adopt somebody else's value system and then mix that with your money. Keep your value system, budget your money correctly, and just be well. Allow some time for freedom. Okay, next question. I think we have some. So Pam, is it Pam from Zimbabwe? Say such valuable lessons. Thank you.
Yes, from Zimbabwe.
Hey, hello. I've got tons of Zimbabwe friends, by the way. And I actually, do you have a question? I might have a question for you.
No, but I really wanted to thank you for taking this time to go through these things with us, because it's a very, very true thing that money is something we don't always know how to go about putting into consideration. And for me, I'm actually at a stage where this is such a valuable lesson that I am honored to have been able to join and hear all of this from what you shared. And I'm sure that many people also share the same sentiments, because where we are going, we really need to change how we have that mindset that we have with money and how we prepare way in advance. These are things that I had no idea, but very honored to have been part of learning from this session. Thank you, sir.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Before you unmute yourself,
Okay.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
You have experienced the upheavals of currencies, right?
Uh-huh.
How would you comment on that idea of like fighting inflation, like getting assets that fight inflation, maybe for like 30 seconds?
that is the main, I think that's what we should like all aim for. There's a very, I'm trying to get into a training. I'm praying to God that I'm going to get the finances to get into the, it's a very recent training, but it's a food training, ACFTDA or something like that. But I'm very interested to learn more on that because they're very much focused on inflation and cutting inflation and focusing on trade that allows free trade in Africa, those kind of things that need to have a system flowing to cut off that whole concept of inflation, because we're just using money for the wrong things. Consumerism is dragging down a lot of the things that, you know, and then we end up stuck in these cycles of, you know, things such as Black Friday and things like that. We're taking a lot of our money into those things, and we then sit back, and then January comes, we want to talk about different things as if we were not there doing the same thing. So it's we have to, I believe that that's the goal. If we can find a way, and I hope that many people will get to learn with this trade training. These guys, they're in Nigeria and Lagos. I hope that people can learn more about that and how we're going to create this free trade market and fight inflation together. I hope that contributes.
Yeah, thank you. And to that end, I wanted to mention about the sales culture. And I see you, Abdallah. Abdallah, Andrew, and Fozia have questions. But before we go, I want to mention that the sales culture, the discounted culture, that is something that came on in the 90s, where it's like, oh, this thing costs $100, but today you can buy it for 40. Again, let's focus on value. Does this thing advance what you value or no? Don't focus on the price. So that is part of wellness, where you're going to be tempted. And trust me, the retail therapy thing is for real, where they promise you that you're going to feel so much better after buying this thing. Trust me, it's going to be the best feeling you've ever had. And you might have it, but it's still going to be like a good 24, 48 hours. Okay, so let's go maybe Abdallah, and then Fozia, and then Andrew.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, Abdallah. Sorry, you're muted, I think.
Okay, can we back? Hello, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Abdullah Ismail Abdullah speaking from Nigeria.
Hello.
Thank you for. Are you with me?
You have an echo.
Yeah.
So you have an
yeah. Is it the echo or TV in the back?
Yes.
So you can type your question. You can type your question if you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very, very wonderful station. I thank you, the guest speaker, for taking time to go through this insightful and very, very important topic. I have been able to understand, how to make a plan for the future, by just 7 or 15% of my earnings or of my income. Therefore, the next thing I'm going to ask is, I want to consolidate on this important knowledge gained today. How can I consolidate on this? Are there any subject courses you may wish to suggest to us, so that we can improve and build on this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and feel free to type in the questions in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat as well. I see a few questions from Nganga and a few other people, so I'll get to those. So feel free to type in the questions because I can hit them a little bit faster. So Abdallah, thank you so much for asking. I will look around for courses. I'm designing a course myself. The only problem I see with courses, especially online, is that there's heavy focus on debt management. And in an African context, our credit markets are not that fully developed that debt is a problem. Inflation is more of our problem. So opportunity and inflation is more of what is in an African context more relevant. So I'm trying to create a course that addresses that. but I'll look around for courses and maybe I'll share through Enoch. So get subscribe to the email or newsletter that they sent out, and we'll follow up with you. And yeah, thank you for like hitting the lesson and that 15%, if that works. Okay, so I'll go for Zia and then I'll read one from the chat.
Okay, can you hear me?
You're cutting out a bit. You're cutting out. Yeah, unfortunately, your sound is not the greatest. Do you mind typing? Do you mind typing it?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get to it immediately. All right, so Andrew, maybe you can go while she types. Andrew,
Good evening. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm okay. Okay, my name is Andrew. I'm from Zimbabwe.
Hey, another Zimbabwe person. Zimbabwe strong
Yeah.
Indian.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question about inflation in relation to the central banks and the banking system. Zimbabwe, we had a situation in 2008 where the banking system would print so much money and the inflation would rise. So my question is the banking system doing us justice, especially in the African context where we have so much money and less production? Is the banking system not killing our economy? Because I feel like our leaders are using the banking system to loot the products from the people, especially in terms of land, minerals and stuff. So the question is the banking system doing justice to the African economy?
Okay. So because we have limited time and I've been known to go on tangents, I'm just going to answer you simply. The money or the currency is in the hands of bankers and politicians. So I don't know if the level of expectation is the problem or they are just performing as expected. It's not just Africa, but because we talk about Africa a lot, we look at Argentina, Turkey, we look at Indonesia. What is that country that just collapsed? Like look at Pakistan and the way the system is set up with this form of democracy, the bankers cannot not be in bed with politicians. Politicians need money to buy votes, and politicians can never turn down an easy solution. So we end up with these easy solutions to money that require hard decisions. If you look at people who have made tough decisions on economies and said no to, let's say, the way Rwanda said no to textile industry coming in, you have to make tough decisions, and tough decisions are not very well suited when you have politicians that are not strong and when you have democracies that are not very well developed. So in short, yes, politicians are not doing and bankers are not doing us justice, but it's not just Africa, it's across the world, because the American people say exact same thing about their leaders. They keep printing money. Yesterday, the governor of Michigan, to combat inflation, printed checks to send to people. And if anybody has been listening, inflation is too much money for too few goods. So what do you think more money is going to do? So politicians cannot resist an easy solution, and bankers cannot stand up to politicians. So we're in a loop where you have to keep taking care of yourself. Okay, so Fawzia, this is your question. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Fawzia, this is your question. What do you suggest for someone who is an employee and wants to be financially free to start a business or an asset? Great question. And I don't want people to ever think employment is not freedom, because as somebody who has started businesses, 90 90-something% of businesses fail. 90-something% of businesses fail. So if you think freedom is starting a business, let me just pump your brakes on. And I financed a lot of business. I was a business account manager for over 4 years. And after that, I wrote policy for business. So businesses fail. The good thing about business is they have tax advantages. They have tax advantages because usually they're taxed at half or less than half what you get taxed. And if you have a successful business, you can control what you earn. Now, because some opportunities are you're uniquely positioned, if you see an opportunity where your values or your skills and abilities allow you to start a business, yes, you should, because you have a competitive advantage. But I would not recommend it for immediate financial freedom. If you have a job right now, it means there's some value to your time. One of the best things you can do is invest in making your time more valuable. And I can see you are a woman. And if there is a situation where your current employment does not give credence to you because you're a woman and you don't feel seen, you can try to continue making your time more expensive and looking aside to see if there's somewhere where they would appreciate your contribution more. And usually if you look in smaller companies that are competing with you or people who are in a similar situation but have overcome, you can go and get a mentor to see how did they progress past this wall. If you know another woman that did very well, it's all about taking one step at a time. And if you have time that somebody is willing to pay for, try to make it more expensive. And then keep saving. If you get a chance to start a business, please do. But if somebody's paying for your time is an asset. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and I had a question from Nganga, I think. Nganga, you must be Kenyan, my brother or sister. I actually do not know. What would be your best advice for people who are living in countries that are most by inflation? Yes. So with high inflation, it makes cash like ice cream on a sunny day, right? Every time you have ice cream on a sunny day, what do you have to do? You've got to chow it very fast, right? Because otherwise it's going to be running down your hand and the whole thing's going to be a mess. So with high inflation, so you have, let's say, a case where inflation is 20%. The bank is promising you 6 or 7%. If you have an ability to borrow to buy assets are gaining that 20%. So if you had a house, for example, the house would have gained that 20%. So if you are able to buy assets that hold their value through inflation, real estate has been one of the things that hold their value through inflation. On a smaller side, I know not everyone can go outside and just buy a house. That's not the economy we're living. On the smaller side, maybe you can call it a business, but something like what I suggested of buying, what do people actually enjoy that is non-perishable? In Malawi, it's Malawi gin. If you go out and buy a crate of Malawi gin and you keep it at your house, and then 2-3 months later, you bring it out, it's going to capture inflation. So that's on a smaller level. So, something like $5, $10, $20, you can keep that value because as they produce, they have the power to set prices. So you want to buy something from someone who has the power to set prices. And if they have the power to set prices, they will not lose on inflation, which means you will not lose on inflation. It's not going to be the same in every economy, but you have to be creative. This is where you get your brain thinking, okay, what is the thing that most people buy that prices keep changing? If it's eggs, for example, you think eggs is a thing? What is the chances of going and buy 2-3 chickens and putting them in the backyard? Eggs over here have gone up 122%. I wish I had a chicken, but I'd go to jail if I had a chicken in Toronto because they don't allow livestock. Yes. So next question. Sorry, did I miss anything, Enoch? I feel like I'm missing a couple of people.
No, yeah, we just have a few minutes to go. I think you can make your final remarks. For
Okay.
those who have questions, I will continue the chatting and connect with you more.
Yeah, so somebody from Zanzibar, South Sudan. I wanted to actually see if everyone can type in the chat where they're from, and then we can conclude with that.
Sure.
Everybody go in the chat, type in where you're from, rep your city, type the city and country. I'll go first.
So, John, we usually have like magic words, final remarks for our panelists. What are your 3 magic words? People, at least if they forget about inflation and everything you spoke about, what key thing they shouldn't never forget?
The 3 things you should never forget. Your values. Okay, values before anything.
Yeah.
Okay, budget and that future tax. Yeah. That future tax of 15%. You can do more, by the way. Don't stop at 15% because I said so. Yeah. But don't go under because it's 15% and more. Okay, so we've got Zim, Ethiopia, Nigeria, strong Nigeria. There's another thing I wanted to touch on the financial wellness piece, that psychology. It's really important in these tough times to take care of yourself and be like give yourself some grace. This is a very challenging year. The past year and 2 years are very challenging. So it's not just you, it's everybody else. So don't be too hard on yourself. And if you're choosing to lead, just know you're going to lead even when you're imperfect. So keep marching.
Thank you, John, and thank you. I appreciate John, please, for his time, expertise, and sharing with passion. Appreciate John. You can give her a thumbs up. You can give him a shout out, whatever way you wanna do it. But appreciate him, and thank you, John, for your time. It has been a very incredible moment, and like you said, this lesson is we need it more than I think any part of the world, because we miss the concept of wealth creation. We think wealth creation is buying an expensive car and walk around in a neighborhood and tinted glasses. So wealth creation, value, assets, the difference between assets and liabilities. So we need really such stuff. And a lot of young people, like young professionals, will go rent like high-end apartments. And for him, it's psychologically satisfied that he's doing well, you know. And when market crashes, the guy is no more, instead of investing in real estate bonds and stocks. So thank you very much. This is a more valuable seminar than a political rally, I guess. Yeah. So thank you very much, John, and everyone who tuned in. We'll continue the same conversation. If you want to connect with John, drop your, make sure I will drop his contacts with his permission, social media and everything. You get in touch and the conversation continues. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.